Welcome to the Squared Circle Pit with your host, Rob Paspani.
Now entering the Squared Circle Pit, the guitarist of Outer Heaven, Zak Carter, sporting an incredible Cactus Jack in Japan t-shirt. Oh, with Terry Funk on the back.
All over
It's an
print,
all
baby.
over print. It's beautiful. Zak, you've come to play. You've come to slay here on the Squared Circle Pit. Thank you for joining me.
I had to dig this one out. It was at the bottom of a bag because it did not fit me. I've owned it for like almost 10 years. It never fit me until this is the first time I tried it on. I was like, oh, it fits.
What's your weight loss regimen? How did you get it to fit?
I lost 100 pounds in the last 8 months, since 9 months now, since August.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was always too small, and I was like, I bet that fits now, and it does. So I'm stoked. This is my first time busting it out.
What's the secret? Is it drugs or is it diet and exercise and sleeping correctly?
Well, I don't know about the sleep thing because I haven't gotten that locked down, but it's definitely for me. It's just the diet, and I work an active job, but it's not eating 1,500 calories of Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast on my way to work. That's been the secret.
I hear you. Well, this isn't a weight loss podcast. It's a wrestling podcast. Although I am very curious about your weight loss. But let's first. I do want to mention you guys have a new album coming out. I'm really digging it. You guys just put out a video.
Yep.
It's very exciting. The new album. It is called Infinite Psychic Depths.
Yes.
It's coming out July 21st on Relapse Records. Very exciting to have a record out. Record coming out in the summer. It's a good time for some crusty metal.
Absolutely. It's been a long time coming. 5 years almost since Realms of Eternal Decay came out. So it's been a long time coming. We put a lot of work into it, and I'm real excited for everyone to hear it.
To put that into context, your last album came out before AEW even existed.
Correct. Yes. So, yeah, it was a pre-AEW time. So, but
so let's get into it. So my first question is always, what is your earliest memory of pro wrestling?
My dad and I used to watch ECW at his house, like late at night. He had some VHS tapes that we would watch. He taped some stuff. And it was just always ECW with my dad. He was not like a WWF guy. I had to go back much later.
Where did you grow up, by the way?
I'm suburbs of Philadelphia.
Oh, okay. So you're in ECW country.
Yeah, I mean,
and around what time was this? Like, what era do you remember?
I'm gonna say like 97, 98.
Oh, so look, this is like the best of ECW.
I was like 4. I remember being like 4 or 5 years old, and my dad taking me to the Franklin Mills Mall in Northeast Philly, and outside the Burlington Coat Factory, there was a guy who had a whole like little kiosk in the middle of the mall, and he would buy me an ECW figure, and I had the ring, and I had New Jack, and I had the Dudleys, I had Tommy Dreamer, all the figures. Yeah, I was like firmly an ECW guy, and then like to the point where like there were kids in like elementary school, middle school that would be like DX chopping and like all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what that is because I never watched WWF. I literally like my dad was just an ECW
so fascinating.
guy. I had zero frame of reference. I had to go back later. I totally fell out of wrestling until like maybe 10 years ago from like my childhood, and I went back and started like I joined a band called Castle Freak before, and the singer of that band, Andy, was like he was a huge mark. Love that guy. And, super into it. And I got he kind of rekindled my love for it back like maybe 10 years ago, 9 years ago now. And, like I remember watching like what got me back into it was like when the Royal Rumble was in Philly, 2015, I think. And then Bubba Ray came out and stuff like that. And I was like, yes. Yeah. I was like, yes. Okay, I remember this. And then like I just kind of did like a deep dive, through all like the best stuff. I mean, of course I know, I was like, Stone Cold has always ruled. I've always been a Mick Foley guy forever. I've been Cactus Jack and Dude Love and Mankind for Halloween,
So you didn't know who Dude Love was though.
Yeah. I knew a Cactus Jack, from like
what he was keeping up to.
Yeah, from the ECW stuff and stuff like that. But like I always kept up, was like the Mick Foley guy, but like never really anything else up
So
until
what-
like the
did
last
you
like
fall
10
out of-
years.
Did you fall out of it because of ECW going out of business? in
Yeah,
2001?
I never kept, once ECW stopped, I like never kept up with it. And like, I was just like, I got into other stuff, but like my earliest memories are of ECW. Like I got it. But then when I rekindled my love of professional wrestling, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like this
It's so
is
funny.
it's like, this is just as cool as I remember being when I was a kid,
So in 2001, you're like, what, like
8.
10 or 8?
Yeah.
So and you're at that point where like kids are like, oh, this is stupid.
Yeah.
I'm a big boy now. I'm not going to watch wrestling. But the wrestling you were watching was ECW.
It was. Yeah, but I think that correlates like right into the time where it was just like I stopped caring about literally anything that wasn't Iron Maiden at the point. Like I thought like that.
Oh, so that's when you found Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that's when when I was 8, 2001,
Okay.
2002. That's when I found Iron Maiden. Which, I mean, my entire office is just Maiden, everything. So it's just like that's my shit. So
Was that
was,
the
like-
first rock band that you
that was-
discovered, or like the first one you fell in love with?
That was the first. I mean, my dad, huge metal dude, also. So like, he got me an Iron Maiden. Like I remember, like the first like rock band that my dad that I got into through my dad was Clutch. But like the first real love of my life was Iron Maiden through Wrestling Connection, through Fozzy, Chris Jericho's band. Their second album was all cover. It was half covers. They had like 4 originals. Happenstance. They covered Love Machine by Wasp, Free Will Burnin' by Judas Priest, Big City Nights by Scorpions, Balls to the Wall by Accept, but the last track was Where Eagles Dare by Iron Maiden. And we were listening to it. I saw him on the weekends, and he's driving me home. We're listening to Happenstance by Fozzy, and Where Eagles Dare comes on. And then at the end of it, I was like, put that on again. And he played it again. And then the next weekend, he took me out to buy a Peace of Mind at the Tower Records in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. My fondest memory. So you can thank my dad for my love of metal and wrestling.
Well, also you can thank Chris Jericho for your love
Absolutely.
of Iron Maiden.
Absolutely.
That's wild. I'm sure he would take that as the biggest compliment.
Absolutely. I remember I was listening to an interview with him where he was like talking about his appreciation for like the Blaze Bayley years. And I was just like, this guy rules.
He knows what's up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you? So I take it that your parents were divorced. How did your mom feel that your dad was showing you all this hardcore, violent stuff? Like I don't
mean-
know if ECW is meant for kids.
I mean, my stepdad showed me Predator and Saving Private Ryan around the same time, so it was just like I was just like, my mom was just like, whatever, Like
I see.
my dad was always like a great influence on me, but also like I got my first tattoo with my dad and I have matching Iron Maiden tattoos on our hands
Amazing.
that we got in a basement when I was 16. That's my first
your dad
tattoo.
also has tattoos, and your dad's a metalhead. I mean,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
he's-
My dad
looks the part.
my dad was like almost in metal church. He sang in a bunch of bands in the 80s and stuff like that. He used to tell me stories like he like was on Motorhead's tour bus one time and he had to leave because Lemmy smelled so bad. He literally could not take it. He said Lemmy was just like so smelly. He was like he like almost got sick and had to leave. But like, yeah, my dad's like was a sick, like true metalhead, like through and through. Like he used to talk about going to the Cell Block and G. Willikers in South Jersey, seeing, like Death at the Cell Block and like shit like that. It's never like a huge death metal head, but he would go there because the only other option was going to like the hair metal club, and he wasn't about that. He wasn't, but he was like a huge thrasher. Like he like loved like Forbidden and Testament
How do
and
you
shit
think-
like that.
With like getting this exposure to ECW at such a young age, how do you think that affected you, like your psyche? like in terms of, obviously it set you up for being a metal musician.
Yes.
And I think there's like a big, like with ECW for me as well, it was a huge influence on my musical taste because I discovered so many bands through there just because it was somebody's, like I heard Deep Purple for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Shane Douglas came out to Deep Purple.
Pantera.
And like Pantera, of course. But I mean, I already had not to brag, but but absolutely,
That was my
it,
first
like,
exposure to
established-
Pantera.
But even even Kiss, I always thought Kiss was such a corny band. And then Taz's entrance theme, War Machine, I learned was a Kiss song. And I was like, what the fuck? Kiss it had a heavy album. And then I realized that, they made an album of like Pantera Worship, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So that had a huge effect on me. What kind of effect would you say it had on you?
I think that combined with like the violent movies I was watching at the time definitely like desensitized me to like graphic TV violence, graphic movie violence and stuff like that. And it's just like, there's nothing I love more in wrestling than like watching someone get hit in the head with a chair or like watching a Van Daminator or,
So are you into like the deathmatch stuff now? Like what are your?
I don't know. I feel like
like for me, it depends.
It really depends. A lot of it's just like, okay, like I guess maybe I'm getting old, but I'm like this is too much. I'm like, all right, like I've got growing up living where I am, I've got friends like, hey, you want to go to the CZW or you want to tournament of death, and I'm like, I'm gonna hang out with my cats and my fiance.
Yeah, Tournament of Death is a bit much for me. I remember when Ring of Honor was going. I'm guessing you kind of skipped over Ring of Honor when it was.
I went back and what like
you went back, yeah. But like I was going because it was such a dark period for wrestling. WCW and ECW were out of business, and WWE was just not giving me what I wanted as a fan.
Absolutely.
Ring of Honor was the only outlet, and what sucked was they didn't have television. They had 1 hour on the Philly channel 48. I forget the call numbers.
I don't remember.
But I would get the Philly channel in New York and I would watch it occasionally, but it didn't, you had to go to the shows basically. And we would go to the shows and we would take a bus. PW Insider, Mike Johnson would do a bus trip there and back to like Midtown. And it was so wild because on the way there, I remember they would play wrestling tapes. And so one time they played the CZW Tournament of Death, and it was the one where Zandig gets hooked by gets those hooks in his back and is just crucified. And I'm just like, I don't know.
This is
this isn't wrestling. I don't know. Like I turned into Jim Cornette all the time, But I did like what I loved about ECW was it was violent, like storytelling violence.
Yes,
like, everything had a purpose,
and everyone was just like so good at what they did, and like the characters were just like so good.
Who are your guys? Obviously, Mick Foley, Cactus Jack,
Rob Van Dam, Sabu. I love Sabu, love Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, New Jack, the Dudleys. Dudleys are my favorite tag team of all time. Like full stop. My favorite tag team of all time is the Dudleys. Like watching, Dudleys versus New Jack and Spike, where Bubba throws Spike into the crowd and they like crowd surf him around, and then back to the ring.
That was such a fun,
it's so
little
fun
moment.
Everything is just like so fun and just like, but it's like that like controlled chaos. Like right, it's like it could go off the rails at any time, but like it always comes back down to earth and stuff like that. It's just like I think that was like. Because you never knew what to expect watching it.
Yeah, and I feel like ECW did such a great job of just getting everybody over.
Yes,
even
absolutely.
in the late era, like the late era stuff. Like I don't know if you went back and watched some of the 2000, 2001 stuff.
Yeah,
it's not that good. It's real, but like still, Chris Chetty was over.
Absolutely.
Who was Nova was over. Everyone from the first match, even they had like, who was that guy that dressed like Belvis Wesley or something? What's his name?
I don't remember.
He sucked, but people cheered him getting caned by the Sandman, And I was actually at the last pay-per-view that they did. I was there in person.
That's awesome.
I was at the last two. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this on the show before, but I designed Rob Van Dam's website at the time.
Whoa.
A 15-year-old me designed his website. And I never got to meet him at the time, but through his webmaster, he would give me comp tickets to the shows, which ended up being their last shows.
Yeah.
And so that's such a cherished memory for me of just being there in the room. But by that last show, it was done,
writing
was
on the wall.
Cooked.
It was just,
did you watch when they had that reunion, the ECW reunion, which I had just learned happened 18 years ago?
Was that the one night
stand? Yes,
I do. Is that's the one where like Rob Van Dam versus John Cena. That's the second one. That's the second one.
The first one was Tommy Dreamer and Sandman versus the Dudleys was the main event.
Okay, yeah. I remember that.
And Sandman came out to enter Sandman, and the whole Hammerstein ballroom was. It was so.
Shout out
powerful.
to the Sandman. I've heard he's doing good lately.
I think he's sobered up.
Yes, I heard he's sober. I waited on him at my old job once. Like one of my first
tell me
days.
the story.
He lives in
Where was this?
Broomall, Pennsylvania, apparently. Not to dox the Sandman, but that's where I was working at the time at a drive-through convenience store. And my old boss Tony, shout out Tony, was like huge, like biggest mark I've ever known. Lived and bled professional wrestling, everything. He was just so into it. And that was really also like I started working there around the same time. I like a couple of years before I joined Castle Freak, my old band, where Andy was like super into it. And that's like kind of also because I was like so exposed to it from like him and somebody else talking about wrestling all the time. But anyway, it's like one of my first days, and this guy comes through in a pickup truck, and he buys like a gallon of milk or something, and I hand it to him through the drive-through window, and he drives away. And my boss knew I had liked ECW at the time, or like back in the day. He goes, "You know who that was, right?" And I was like, I wasn't really paying attention to who it was. He goes, "You just waited on the Sandman, dude." And I was just like, "What?" I was like, "The Sandman." Like ECW sent me. He's like, "Yeah, dude." He's like, he comes in here every once in a while. Never saw him again. But I was ready. Every single day I went into work, I was ready. I was ready to meet the Sandman. But yeah, I waited on him, and we were two ships passing in the night, man. I didn't even recognize him.
Well, what's your favorite ECW pay-per-view to go back and watch?
Barely Legal 97?
Oh, yeah, there's only one. Yeah, 97.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Just the first pay-per-view.
Yeah, Barely Legal 97. That one's great.
Did you watch it live?
If I know my dad, there's no way he would have paid money for a pay-per-view of anything. I remember I always asked, but there was no way my dad was going to pay money for a pay-per-view. So he probably would have got it. Somebody would have taped it on VHS or something like that. He would have bought it afterwards.
But you saw it at the time?
Yeah.
I was dying to see it. I couldn't watch it because they got pulled from my cable company.
Oh, man.
Because of that mass transit incident. They
got
pulled from all these cable companies.
That's classic.
I was so bummed.
Classic.
Yeah, my favorite pay-per-view is Heatwave, I think 98.
Oh, the Heatwave incident. With the Dudleys.
Was the one with...
Was that...
Oh, no.
That was that
match I'm thinking of. I think it was 98.
Yeah.
But the match I'm thinking of was the match before, which was RVD and Sabu versus Hayabusa and Kenzei Seiozaki.
Yes.
Hakushi.
Yeah.
Because I was, much like yourself, RVD and Sabu were my guys. Like Cactus Jack, RVD, Sabu.
They're the best.
Sabu, and like when I saw Sabu for the first time, like I mentioned, I got the Philly channel, Philly 48, and I learned like one summer, I was just watching TV, and apparently every weeknight at 10 p.m., they had a different wrestling promotion on.
That's cool.
So it would be like WCCW from Texas. I think maybe even like Smoky Mountain Wrestling was on there for a little bit. But then like one night it was ECW. And I remember the first angle that I saw, the first person I saw on ECW was Raven, who was also very much my guy.
Love Raven.
And I was like, oh, whoa, that's Scotty Levy from WCW, but he looks so much cooler here. What's going on? And it was the angle where Beulah McGillicuddy told Raven that she's pregnant and the baby is Tommy Dreamer's.
Oh, my God.
The draw. And I'm like, oh, my God, this is so
You're like, I'm in.
Great. Yeah, I was in like right there.
Yeah.
And then I fucking see Sabu, and I'm just like, all of wrestling has changed for me because I talk about this on my other podcast, Nitro, where we watch episodes of Nitro, and he's on the first few episodes, but he wrestled 5 years ahead of everyone else. You know, like he was doing such crazy things that Eric Bischoff at the time didn't even know the name of the movie he was doing. He was like, look at that. Wow. You know, what an impressive maneuver. You know, I loved Sabu. I think Sabu is one of the most underrated people in pro wrestling.
1,000%.
He should be a billionaire for like
1,000%.
how many people he's influenced.
I haven't been following AEW lately. I went to the first Philly show. That was the match where It was Jericho versus Darby Allin, and he handcuffed Darby Allin's hands behind his back. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
But I did see Sabu through social media, came back and was on AEW, which I was very happy to see. Yeah, I was very happy to see. I was like, man, hell yeah.
Give him a payday.
I just like I feel for my guy Sabu. Like I feel like he's probably fallen on hard times lately.
Well, he can't wrestle anymore.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
He's too injured.
Of course. Like
he did a spot right at the beginning of the match. It was a table spot where they laid out a table, put someone on, and he didn't so much jump off the top rope as he fell off the top rope. God. It was one of those. But I was just like, you know what? They gave him a spot.
And that's all.
He earned his money.
That's all you need. Yeah. Give Sabu his payday. Somebody needs to. Yeah. Put some respect on Sabu, because like that. Like I remember years ago on WWE.com they had an article. It's like how Sabu changed the face of professional wrestling and nobody noticed. And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like just to get that kind of like recognition from WWE.
Did you watch any of the WWE ECW thing?
I do remember when it came back on. My dad would put it on the TV, and I was like, "Well, what years was that?"
That was like 2005.
Yeah, so I was like early teens, but like he would put it. He'd like, "Oh, they got ECW on the TV." And then, but it was just like not the same. It would be like,
it was awful.
This is whack, and turn it off.
I gave it a big chance. Like I gave it weeks of a chance, and I
had a vivid memory of my dad being so excited. We're like scrolling through the TV, and
Me too.
He sees ECW. He's like, "Oh, they got ECW on the TV," and then he was like, "Who are all these people?"
I never made it to the ECW arena for the original incarnation of ECW, and then when they announced this reunion, they announced a tour, and the first event was going to be at the ECW arena, and I was just like, I have to go to this. And we took a bus, me and my friends, and it was one of the worst shows I've ever seen. It was so bad. The only good match I remember was Kurt Angle versus Rob Van Dam, which
that sounds awesome.
Of course, can't not. And I guess there was a street fight with the Big Show and Tommy Dreamer. And that was fun because they just ran all over the arena.
Yeah, of course.
But otherwise, it was a complete waste of time. I remember leaving the venue and like locals were like, this was so terrible. Like I went to a TNA show last week and that was even worth my money more than this, The
only event that I've ever been to at the ECW arena was a House of Hardcore show in like 2016. And that was awesome. That was so much fun. I remember my singer Andy and I were like standing in line, and this like lady comes up to me. She goes, "Are you Zach?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "You used to teach my son guitar at School of Rock." She was like, "Do you have your tickets yet?" And I was like, "Nah." And she's like, "We have 2 extra tickets at like the 4th row." And I was like, she was like, "Just come with us." I was like, "Okay." So like we sat there. We were 4th row. The main event was Rob Van Dam versus Rhino. Yeah, it was like Rob Van Dam's first match in the arena in like however many years. I don't remember, but it was like. It was so sick. He comes out to Pantera, and then, Rhino comes out, and then there's a run-in by the Sandman, and he's, like, pouring beer on everybody, and, everyone's drinking, and it was, like, Rhino comes out, and he's, like, playing this heel, and, like, everyone's chanting, like, RVD 420, shit like that, and he's, like... Rhino's like, grabs the mic, he's like, "I'm a politician, I'm straight edge, and I don't do any of that crap." And then, like, everyone's, like, booing him and stuff like that, and, like, he's, like... Everyone's trying to get Ryder to drink beer. It was so funny. But yeah, it was. Who else was there? But they had a bunch of people there. Eddie Kingston was there, I remember. Pepper Parks was there. Bunch of people that are in AEW now. Can't remember everybody. It was kind of all of a blur, but I definitely remember. And it was right after Balls Mahoney died. A couple days after Balls Mahoney. So they like had like a big like memoriam ceremony for Balls Mahoney in the like right before. That was also I liked Balls Mahoney when I was a kid.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this guy just rules.
I looked up the house show results, and it's worse than I remember.
Oh boy,
it's
let's hear it.
Not as bad on paper. The full-blooded Italians, Little Guido and Tony Mamaluke,
nice,
defeated Danny Doring and Roadkill. Okay, so starting off with ECW
that's
originals.
cool. That's cool.
CM Punk makes his ECW debut, and he defeated Stevie Richards with the Anaconda Vice. Cool. Kind of cool little moment.
That is cool.
Sure.
I'm in.
That was the first time we saw CM Punk in a WWE environment. Obviously, I had known who he was from Ring of Honor. Then Francine defeated Trinity and Kelly in an extreme bikini contest.
Yes.
Mike Knox defeated Balls Mahoney, which you can imagine the crowd hated.
Yeah, of course.
Sabu defeated C.W. Anderson via submission with his Arabian clutch.
Okay.
Which I'm sure everyone was excited to just see Sabu for that one. Sandman defeated Just Incredible. Paul Heyman came out to cut a promo, and I remember this so vividly. He didn't say these exact words, but he was essentially like, look, I know this isn't what you want. I know that like you want something more, but unfortunately my hands are tied right now. But if you keep supporting us and show there's an audience for this, we'll eventually give you what you want. He got boo. I remember he got booed and the crowd started chanting, "This show sucks."
Oh my God.
To Paul Heyman in the ECW arena. Can you imagine?
That's wild, dude.
Big Show defeated Tommy Dreamer with a chokeslam through a table, and Rob Van Dam defeated Kurt Angle to retain the ECW title with Dean Malenko as special referee. So that must have been
that's a lot of fun.
It looks much more fun on paper.
Yes, it looks a lot more. I'm sure it was not as fun as it sounds, but yeah, I'm sure it was.
So you said you got back into wrestling about like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
How into it are you now? Like, you mentioned
I follow all like the socials and stuff like that. I keep up with the stuff. I'll pop in for pay-per-views every once in a while. I don't have cable anymore. Like I was like watching it religiously when I had my apartment because for some reason my cable provider wouldn't just give me internet in my apartment building. I was forced to have cable, and I was like, all right, I can watch Raw. That's cool. But when I bought a house a couple years ago, and I was freed of my shackles of having to pay for cable that I wasn't really even using that much. So now I just stream. I have Peacock with WWE Network pop in for pay-per-views every once in a while. But I follow on like the socials. I see what's going on. I see CM Punk's back again. A Collision in Chicago. Should be a big pop. Yeah, other like, So you don't watch week to week. You just kind of keep up with it on socials. Yeah, I keep up with the socials. I'm loving like all like the I came into it right like at the beginning of the Roman era, and I was just getting so sick and tired of seeing this motherfucker on my TV every week, and now I'm like hell yeah, tribal chief baby. Oh yeah.
So WWE is like the main company. Like you're not really watching Japan or
I was like back. I did watch a couple Wrestle Kingdoms ago, and I popped in for Jericho versus Omega at Wrestle Kingdom. Like if there's a match, I'm like, oh, I gotta see that. I'll pop in.
Yeah, no judgment. I'm just curious. Like,
I mean, I have like
you only have so much time.
Yeah, I've like if there's something that like I'd like need to see, when like I even after I had gotten rid of cable and they announced Nick Gage for AEW, I was just like, I gotta figure out a way to watch this because like this is just gonna be like how insane is this gonna be?
Yeah.
And then there's certain stuff that just gets me stoked, man. Like there's stuff I want to see. I watched I'll pop in to AEW every once in a while. I do that show. I've been to a couple SmackDowns, but the Dynamite that I went to in Philly was like the most fun wrestling. Like just like the crowd, It was just it was right in the very beginning. It was like one of like the first AEW shows like in front of it, like, and it was just like the energy was just like so awesome, and it was just like so much fun. Yeah, that was. I definitely like. I was trying to go to the last time they came to Philly, but it didn't work out with my work.
Does your dad still watch?
My dad. My dad is deceased.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. No. It's okay.
I'm so sorry.
No, my dad, but he.
So I guess that's a no.
Yeah, no, he does not. No, he would text me. It was so funny because like he'd pop in and just like catch like Raw or SmackDown on TV like a couple years ago, and he just like I would just get like random texts from my dad while I'm at work, and he's like, this person is doing this, and I was like, word, I'm at work. I was like, I'm surprised you're like just popping in to watch Raw. Like, that's cool.
He still can't help it. He still has the
he always just like had like a, he was just always like a professional wrestling enjoyer, but he just like was an ECW guy. But then, later on he like got into the Raw. I think it was because I would like still go see him on like the weekends whenever I had a chance, and like I would make him watch like pay-per-views and stuff like that. If I would like log into like my WWE network at his house, and we'd watch wrestling and stuff like that. He always wanted to watch like old ECW stuff, so I'd like watch that. But I'd be like, but we could watch some. I was like, here's some good stuff that's going on now. I was always like a big Shield guy. Loved like going back and watching Shield and Wyatt Family and stuff like that. Even after, because that was all before I had like gotten back into it, but I like went back and like caught myself up on what was going on with that.
What about your bandmates? Are they open to watching wrestling, or do they not want to hear it? Not as much as me. I'm like of Outer Heaven, I'm like the biggest wrestling fan. Austin, our singer, does have like, I think he went to a show at the ECW arena back in the day, and he had like he has pictures of him with like a couple of ECW guys. I'm pretty sure his dad took him, which is cool. Nice.
Yeah, very cool. Like, it just, they'll appreciate it, but it's not like an active like enjoyment. Our old bass player Ray was like the most into it of anybody, and like we went to SmackDown together and stuff like that, and we would like watch wrestling together and stuff like that. That was always fun. But like for Outer Heaven, it's just like it's just me, which is cool. You don't have to like the same stuff as long as we all like death metal.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have your wrestling crew that you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have. I got people at work that's just like, that's like our big thing that we talk about. And that's like really what like has like kept me engaged, is like having a group of people at work that like I always talk to about it.
Yeah,
even if I'm just like on like if the peripheral, like my favorite thing has always been like the characters and like the storytelling and stuff like that, and just like going back and like just like watching Scott Steiner compilations on YouTube. I love that guy. I'm like can't really work anymore for the last like 10 years, but hey man, anytime a Steiner Math promo pops up in my Instagram feed, I'm like, I'm watching the whole thing. But yeah, like,
so final question.
Yeah,
as we wind it down, if Outer Heaven was playing a show and you could book a match to be in a wrestling ring in the pit, in the circle pit, while you guys are playing, what would be the perfect match? Like, it has to be like present day, let's say,
present day. Okay,
to keep it fair.
Okay.
And then maybe we could do a historic one if you already had an idea. What would be the match?
I would love to see Malachi Black versus Edge. That would be sick. I think Edge is doing like some of the best work of his career, like since he's been back, and like Malachi Black's like one of my favorite guys going right now. Like, I feel like that would be sick. Maybe not the most the most chaotic, but like if I wanted to, if I wanted chaos, I would throw Nick Gage in there. But give me Nick Gage versus David Arquette again in an Outer Heaven pit.
Oh my God, that match was brutal to watch. Awesome, man. Well, it was great talking to you, Zach.
Oh, likewise, man.
Maybe we could catch a wrestling show sometime soon.
Absolutely.
The new Outer Heaven album, Infinite Psychic Depths, it's out July 21st on Relapse Records. Check out their music. You guys are on Bandcamp. You're on the social medias.
All of them.
And I love the artwork here. Very, very trippy and creepy, and it looks awesome.
Thank you. Yeah,
I dig the band.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a continuation of the artwork from our first album, so we wanted to keep that same vibe. So yeah, very, very stoked on how the art came out. I'm very stoked. People seem to be very excited for it.
Awesome. Make sure to check out Outer Heaven, and we'll catch you next time on Squared Circle Pit.